I, an unknown 18th-tier actress, was filming a variety show with the esteemed Lord Sawini in a small fishing village, only to be deemed the sea god's bride by the local fishermen and placed on an altar. Everyone believed it was just for the show. Only I knew they truly intended to sacrifice me to the sea, but they severely underestimated the gravity of the situation, because I wasn't actually an unknown 18th-tier actress. I am Nova, the successor of the Jade Spring Temple, currently standing in for my twin sister, an actress pursuing her dreams in the entertainment industry. Look at the camera. The director on the other end instructed us to wave to the audience. All right, that's a wrap for the opening segment. The group of us stood on the beach, shivering in the sea breeze, looking around. The filming location was an obscure fishing village with few modern amenities. Everything in sight exuded an ancient charm. Most of the houses in the village were built of wood, with extensions stretching out over the sea. Director, why did you choose a place like this? Daniel asked, puzzled. His resentment was understandable. Besides being the lead singer and captain of the boy band Nam Thuong, he also had another identity, the grandson of a billionaire. My family has several five-star resorts in Hainan. If you had told me earlier, I would have arranged something for you. The director smiled mysteriously. You wouldn't know, but this fishing village still preserves the ancient tradition of offering sacrifices to the sea. At other resorts, you wouldn't be able to film such an interesting ritual. Every year, on a specific lunar calendar day, the villagers come to the shore to worship the deities, praying to the sea god for peace and bountiful returns from their fishing expeditions. It was the village chief himself who invited our film crew to participate in their sea offering ceremony. Tomorrow is the third day of the month. My name is Nova, the next in line to be the master of the Jade Spring Temple. Before succeeding as master, I had to cleanse myself, observe a vegetarian diet, and perform an awakening ritual. My master told me to take a few days, leave down the mountain. Unexpectedly, my twin sister, Kira, fractured her ankle, requiring at least a month to recover. She had a pile of scheduled appearances, and if she didn't fulfill them, she'd face a huge breach of contract penalty. So, I bravely stepped in to take her place on a variety show. What happened? Netizens started calling me the lucky koi of the entertainment industry. Personally, I didn't mind the title. After all, I was a truly enlightened koi. At that moment, I and the other guests of the variety show had just finished filming the opening segment and were taking a break. Our variety show was originally live, but the signal in this fishing village was too poor. The production team temporarily changed it to a recorded broadcast. The crew was waiting for a new guest to arrive. A moment later, the director looked into the distance, waving excitedly. You're finally here. From afar, a figure in a pure white dress approached, clearly a girl. Everyone, this is our new guest, Miss B. Serafina. Lily, the rising young starlet next to me, heard this and asked, is it Serafina, the musician? The one who, at just 25, became famous both domestically and internationally for her underwater instrumental performances, earning her the title of artist Serafina. A flicker of pride shone in the director's eyes. It's her! Surprising, isn't it? Lord C. standing nearby, chimed in. I heard Seraphina's hometown is a small fishing village in Hainan. Could it be here? The director laughed heartily. As expected of your intelligence. By then, Seraphina had reached the filming location. The first thing she said to the director was, "Don't participate in tomorrow's sea offering ceremony." She raised her hand and pointed at Lily. "Especially you. You must stay in your room tonight. Absolutely. Do not go out." But very quickly, the village chief led the enthusiastic villagers to welcome the film crew, and no one paid attention to Seraphina's abrupt words. What was surprising was that the chief called Seraphina a saintess, and the villagers were also very respectful towards her. Later, during our conversations, we learned that this village was called Moonview. The saintess of the village often had the ability to communicate with the sea god. The director curiously asked Seraphina, "Is that true?" Seraphina smiled lightly. "That's what they say, but I've never discovered this ability myself. My mother was the previous saintess, which is why I inherited the title." After dinner, the village fell silent. In the distance, a large house blazed with lights, standing out amidst the inky dark homes. The village chief led us to our accommodations, and following everyone's gaze towards that light, he explained, "That is our village's ancestral hall. Tomorrow is the sea offering ceremony, and someone must keep vigil there all night, burning incense for the sea god." That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, I peeked open my door, preparing to sneak out and investigate. A hand blocked my door. I looked up and saw Lord Dezine. In his hand, he held a short peach wood sword. "Grigiamo, you're not sleeping in the middle of the night. What are you doing blocking my door?" Eric couldn't make it to this variety show filming, so he asked me to keep an eye on you, not to cause trouble. Well, my senior brother didn't ask you to block my door in the middle of the night, did he? Helplessly, my night excursion gained a large tail. We headed towards the ancestral hall. Every corner of this village exuded an eerie strangeness. At night, not a single house had its lights on. From a distance, a white figure was also walking towards the ancestral hall. Lord Chi and I exchanged glances. Seraphina, what is she doing out? Suddenly, a door we passed creaked open, and a little boy's head peeked out. "Brother, sister, don't go." I stopped and looked back. The boy had handsome features, and his eyes were incredibly firm. He reached out and tugged at my pant leg, holding on tightly, as if to say he wouldn't let go if I continued. I put my hands on my hips, helpless. "Little brother, why won't you let us go?" The boy pointed to the room inside. 5 years ago, my sister also left the house the night before the sea offering ceremony. After she returned, she became dazed. We sat down in Leo's courtyard. It turned out that Leo's parents had never returned after a fishing trip. He lived with his sister. 5 years ago, his sister was chosen as the sea god's bride. In the village, being chosen as the sea god's bride was a supreme honor. After participating in the ritual, one would be invited into the ancestral hall to receive offering. The family would also be treated generously by the village. At least, that's how it had been for previous brides. Until his sister. The night before her wedding, she secretly snuck out, wanting to see what was truly inside the ancestral hall. Early the next morning, his sister returned home disoriented, and from then on, she became dazed. That year, the ritual to welcome the sea god could not be completed. The old villagers rumored that the sea god was greatly enraged. Therefore, this year's village ritual was organized with extreme caution. I looked towards the dark room and asked Leo, "Can I see your sister?" Leo nodded, leading us quietly, then gently pushing open the door. By the moonlight, I saw the woman lying on the bed. When the door opened, she even turned her head to look at us, her face devoid of emotion. We thanked Leo and bid him farewell, finally giving up the idea of going to the ancestral hall. When we returned to my door, Lord Simi asked, "Is there something wrong with that woman?" I pondered for a moment before replying, One of the three soul flames on her shoulders has been extinguished." Lord Selwyn didn't understand. So I continued to explain. People have 3 souls and 7 ethereal spirits. The souls are yang, the spirits are yin. The 3 souls are the heavenly soul, the earthly soul, and the human soul. Each soul has 3 soul lights on a person's shoulders. This is also why old folks often say, if someone taps your shoulder while walking at night, never turn your head. Because once you turn, the soul fire in the soul light will be startled and extinguished. Losing one of the 3 souls causes a person to become dazed. Du, one child is das ein so, Cthulhu Gael ein Leo's sister has lost her human soul among the 3. There's something very wrong with this village. I took out my personal talisman and a small pair of scissors, cutting out several paper figures. Soon, the paper figures slid out from under the door, lining up. I gestured to Lord Delia. "Let's wait for news. Let them scout ahead first." We returned to our respective rooms, carrying our suspicions to bed. Unexpectedly, early the next morning, I was frantically woken up by the production team. "Lily in the room next to yours is missing." I pushed open my door. Outside there was chaos. Serafina was scolding the production team. "Didn't you listen to me? You let her sneak out last night." "No, the director is reviewing the camera footage outside each room. We can't even manage the personal behavior of our artists."
"Oh, Kira. Yesterday's footage showed Lord Sai pulling me against the doorframe."
Even dating needs to be mindful of public image. Luckily, we changed to recorded broadcast. Otherwise, it would have been another broadcasting incident. I thought to myself, broadcasting incident? If it were live, your viewership would skyrocket. I rolled up my sleeves, about to argue with the director. But Lord Sangni pulled me back. "Director, how about we find out where Lily went first?" On screen, Lily stealthily opened her room door and walked towards the ancestral hall, the only lit building in the entire fishing village. Serafina anxiously cried out. She went to the ancestral hall. On her wrist, she wore a green vine-like bracelet. When she anxiously waved her hand, the bracelet glittered under the sunlight. I held her hand. "Don't worry, we'll go check in a bit." Just then, The village chief approached, carrying something, and handed it to the director. The director took it, finding a piece of paper. He opened it for everyone to see. Director, today I want to play the role of the sea god's bride for a bit. I won't be joining everyone for breakfast. Following the chief's direction, everyone looked towards the altar in the distance. Many people were busy on the altar. In the center was a spacious sedan chair. The wind blew open its crimson gauze curtains, revealing a woman in a red wedding dress sitting inside. She turned her head, her eyes blankly staring in our direction. It was Lily. The chief called everyone present to eat. Breakfast has been prepared for our distinguished guests. After breakfast, we will begin the sea offering ceremony. We are extremely grateful to Miss Lily for her willingness to participate in the wedding welcoming stage of the ritual. We hope that after this ceremony, our Moonview Village will have favorable weather and all things will go well. His words were addressed to everyone, but his gaze kept darting towards me. I don't know if others noticed, but Lord Shi did, and he seemed displeased. He discreetly moved closer to me and whispered with dissatisfaction, "Don't you think this chief has a problem? Lily has a mobile phone. Why didn't she text, but instead sent a paper note to the director?" I looked at the breakfast before me. Plain porridge served with side dishes and steamed buns, looking very simple and easy to eat. Among them was a small plate of yellow-flowered vegetables that looked particularly eye-catching. The villagers introduced it as a local specialty, a crispy and delicious side dish made from Moonview flowers. Everyone in the film crew eagerly tried it. I pressed Lord Dugfie's hand down and secretly told him, "The yellow food, don't eat it." Not long after, everyone finished their meal, and the director instructed them to prepare for filming the ritual. Before everyone stood up, the village chief, from who knows where, produced a conch shell. He held it to his mouth and blew short, long creaking sound. Everyone present heard it, and their eyes suddenly became vacant. I pulled Lord Sei and began to mimic everyone's expression. Soon after, everyone seemed to be controlled, standing up and being guided towards the ancestral hall. We walked at the end of the line, maintaining the same pace and frequency of movement as the others, as if we too were being controlled. Suddenly, someone pulled me back. Immediately after, Lord Singing Me pulled me. The two of us were yanked into a roadside house by a hand. As soon as we entered, the door was secretly closed. Opposite us was Serafina. Anilin, Tediada, out west. Serafina looked perplexed. "Are you all right?" I nodded. "Yes, we didn't eat that plate of yellow Moonview flowers." Serafina told me, "Their target isn't Lily, it's you." I looked up at her. "Huh? Come with me to the ancestral hall, and you'll understand." Lord Shi and I followed Serafina towards the ancestral hall. Along the way, the village was deserted. There were only a few people, apparently all gone to participate in the sea offering ceremony. As I was thinking, I suddenly heard a thud behind my head as something heavy struck me. I saw Lord C also get hit. Behind him was a burly man. Before I blacked out, I had only one thought. Indeed, beautiful women cannot be trusted. When I woke up, I was tightly bound with ropes and being carried onto the altar. Lord Zhao was nowhere to be seen. I craned my neck to look down from the altar. The villagers knelt respectfully. The production team members all had blank, robotic expressions. Very soon, the sea offering ceremony was about to begin. My other binds were loosened, but my hands remained tightly tied behind my back. Under the village chief's instruction, several burly men arranged me in the position of a handmaiden next to the sea god's bride. It seemed that even if I was the true sacrifice, they still had to go through all the formalities. After a period of blowing horns and beating drums, the procession reached the center of the altar. Everyone sat down the sedan chair. Lily sat upright in the chair, while the others descended from the altar one by one. Only I, the village chief, Lily and Seraphina remained on the platform. Suddenly, a dark rain cloud drifted from afar. On the altar, strong winds and heavy rain began to rage. The villagers below the altar knelt in unison. The sea god has arrived. The sea god has arrived. Amidst a shroud of black mist, everyone else was shielded from view. A cold voice echoed from within the black mist. Has the one I desire been brought? Along with his voice, a man in a blue robe with long white hair reaching his waist stepped out. He must be the sea god. He reached out his hand towards Lily's head. Suddenly, Lily transformed into a tiny paper figure and scurried away, disappearing from sight. The sea god's eyes sharpened, looking towards the village chief. You dare to trifle with me? Actually, I hadn't slept very well last night either, because the paper figures I released brought someone back in the middle of the night. Early in the morning, the paper figures carried someone to my door, and very intelligently, they slipped a contestant through the door crack. It jumped onto my bed and stomped on my cheek. When I woke up, I saw a paper figure dancing wildly at the head of my bed, and my cheek was a little sore. After that, I expended so much effort to get her in. This person was Lily, and it seemed she was unconscious due to some kind of sedative. I found a calming incense stick in my pouch, lit it, and waved the swirling smoke towards Lily's nose. Just as her eyelashes fluttered slightly, I put out the fire and extinguished the incense. At that moment, I only had one thought. What a waste of resources. When Lily woke up, I had to make her pay. Lily opened her eyes, discovering she was lying on my bed. Her first action was to pull the blanket to cover her chest and say to me, "You, what do you want?" I gave her a speechless sidelong glance and snapped my fingers. A line of paper figures emerged from the shadows behind the door, one of them intimately rubbing against Lily's finger. I patted a paper figure, and it ran to stand before us, sitting cross-legged in a very cute pose. Immediately after, a few images appeared on the snow-white wall opposite it. Lily looked puzzled. I spread my hands. A mobile camera paper figure. Quite scientific, isn't it? To her astonished expression, my mobile camera paper figure began to replay the footage it had captured last night. Because the perspective was from the paper figure, the images conveyed the feeling of a brave dwarf venturing into the kingdom of giants. It crawled out from under my door and headed straight for the ancestral hall. At the ancestral hall door, several paper figures saw Lily lying unconscious in the main hall. Then they carried her horizontally, a group of little ones directly taking her back to my room. On another part of the screen, a paper figure trembled and transformed into Lily, lying down in the position she had originally been in. Soon after, Several men came and carried Lily into the ancestral hall. Inside the ancestral hall, a group of people gathered around a crystal coffin, speaking in hushed tones. A paper figure, taking advantage of others' inattention, sneaked onto the crystal coffin. A face suddenly appeared in the image. The woman lying in the coffin bore a 7 or 8-part resemblance to Seraphina. Before long, the village chief appeared. He walked from afar, with his hands clasped behind his back, a solemn expression on his face. The people inside the hall looked at the chief. "Chief, what do we do now? We caught the wrong person. The sea god wants a different woman. If we don't act tonight, it will be even more difficult tomorrow." The chief walked around, and after a moment said to everyone, "Since things have come to this, first, give her medicine. Tomorrow, I'll find a way to make that girl, Kira, participate in the ritual with her." The image gradually darkened, and the room fell silent. Lily, playing with the paper figures, said, "But it's truly strange. I really don't remember why I went out." I interjected, "Of course you don't remember. Yesterday at dinner, they served each of us a bowl of soup. Perhaps the one who served the soup mistook the person and gave the bowl meant for me to you. Anyway, after that, I once again exerted a lot of effort to delete all the videos the camera figures had recorded along the way. Then I arranged for Lily to stay in my room, instructing her not to leave the room casually during the day and to improvise as needed. Back on the altar, because Lily in the sedan chair had turned into a small paper figure and fled. The atmosphere seemed to freeze for a few seconds. The sea god's expression was unpredictable. The village chief, terrified, quickly pointed at me. "Not her. The one beside her is the one to be sacrificed today." The sea god looked at me, his gaze scrutinizing. "Very well. Then, let's begin." The village chief raised his hand. The village chief raised his hand and touched a switch. The altar began to rumble, then sank into the ground. Soon, the altar transported us to an open courtyard. I looked at the familiar crystal coffin before me, understanding clearly. It seemed the ritual was just a facade. Their true purpose was for the brides married to the sea god to be transferred through a secret passage to the ancestral hall for the next step. They threw me aside. Seraphina and the village chief began to arrange things. It seemed they were setting up a small altar. The altar was placed beside the crystal coffin. On the table next to it were several memorial tablets, and in the center, a crystal ball. Looking closely, inside the crystal ball were 4 faint shadows, appearing to be the souls of 4 girls. Everything was prepared. Seraphina's eyes, looking at the sea god, suddenly filled with hope. "Father, if we guide 5 souls into Mother's body today, will she finally wake up?" My astonishment echoed to the heavens. There was no time to think why these 2 were father and daughter. Hearing their words, they intended to extract my soul. I truly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Excuse me for interrupting, but why does the 5th person have to be me? Seraphina turned to look at me seriously and pointed at the village chief. "You're the very famous Lucky Koi." The village chief also chimed in. "Yes, In your photos, I saw a very large golden aura of luck. I snorted through my nose. You do have good eyes. I paused, then said to the sea god and Seraphina, I know you desperately want your wife and mother to be revived. But I still have to say this. There is fundamentally no such thing as resurrection in this world. The woman in that crystal coffin has been breathless for many years. If she's not buried, there's a high chance she'll turn into a zombie. The village chief snorted in disdain at my words, seemingly to reassure. He explained to Triton, she is the final ingredient. Her words cannot be trusted. Triton, it has been 25 years. Every year, we have used the pretext of the sea god, taking a wife to select suitable girls to collect human souls, keeping them in the crystal ball you gave me. Only now have we reached the final step. Success or failure depends on today. Do you want to gamble Luna's future on the wild words of a girl you've never met? Triton, the sea god, hovered in mid-air. With a wave of his hand, I was firmly locked in place in the air. To be honest, facing a sea god at his peak strength, I dared not act rashly. He still muttered, no matter what, as long as Luna has a sliver of a chance to live again, I am willing to try. Trapped in the air, I anxiously shouted, Hey, handsome uncle, he's tricked you. He's tricked you? There's no such thing as resurrection at all. He's using your wife to cultivate a zombie. The village chief, Elder Quinn, heard my words and had a moment of panic, but quickly regained his composure. Triton, whether the resurrection art works or not, I will now demonstrate it for you. Elder Quinn stood firm, chanting an indistinct incantation. Following his fingertip, the 4 human souls in the crystal ball began to tremble. Suddenly, with a whoosh, they were pulled out of the crystal ball and quickly pressed into Luna's body in the coffin. Luna's body miraculously trembled slightly, faintly showing signs of wanting to sit up. Very quickly, Elder Quinn's face turned red, as if he couldn't control it. When he withdrew his finger and stopped chanting, the 4 souls pierced through the body and came out again, returning to the crystal ball. Can you see it's proven now? Elder Quinn panted as he asked Triton. Only 4 souls are still unstable. Once 5 souls enter and merge, Luna can be awakened. I was speechless. This isn't resurrection, it's possession. Do you understand? Do you understand? Once the souls merge, Luna will turn into a zombie. Why does no one believe me? Triton glanced at Elder Quinn and said, Continue the ritual. Elder Quinn immediately continued to make arrangements, then pulled a syringe from his sleeve and handed it to Triton. Additionally, a syringe of your blood is needed as a catalyst. Triton waved his hand, releasing me from midair. I leaned against a wooden pillar on the side. Seraphina hurried over to look at me. Triton exposed his pale arm, inserted the syringe, and without hesitation drew a syringe full of blood. The blood was blue. I looked at the blue blood and recalled a passage I had once read in a travelogue in my master's study. Beyond the southern seas are merfolk, living underwater like fish, yet weaving scales as usual. Their blood is blue like the tears of the sea. When they weep, they can produce pearls. Their flesh, if eaten, grants health and eternal youth. You're a merman, aren't you? Don't give him that blood. I knew it all. I anxiously stomped my foot. Merman blood. woman's soul, half demon body. Elder Queen wants to use Luna's body to forge an immortal bone zombie. Elder Quinn snatched the syringe of blood, his voice laced with anger. Don't listen to her nonsense. At that moment, a voice from outside echoed. She's not talking nonsense. Lord Sumi and Lily, leading a little boy, rushed over. Looking closely, the boy was Leo. Leo clutched a small notebook. He quickly ran over and handed the notebook to me. This is the notebook my sister carried with her after she became dazed and returned home last year. Inside are Miss Luna's notes. I looked at Leo, my eyes full of sincerity. Leo, thank you for trusting me so much, but my hands are tied. I can't take it. Lord Xewi stepped forward, taking one of Leo's hands, and used his other hand to receive the notebook, standing beside me. We found this notebook at Leo's house. It's Luna's diary, the previous saintess of Moonview Village. This notebook records unknown secrets of Moonview Village, and also about you. He paused, pointing at Seraphina. And your true identity. Seraphina looked confused. I know my father is Triton. Lord Selny looked at Seraphina and Triton. Luna recorded the secrets of Moonview Village in her diary. She exchanged her life for both of yours. The biggest secret of Moonview Village is that the elders have been eating merfolk flesh for generations. It turned out that many years ago, a girl from Moonview Village fell in love with a merman. To keep her lover, she sought out the village witch doctor. The witch doctor used dark arts to enchant the merman, making him stay in the village and live with the girl forever. It was said that merfolk could predict good and bad omens at sea, and could also lead people to treasures at the bottom of the sea. Later, they had a daughter, who became the first saintess of the village. The saintess, being half human, half demon, was naturally attractive to merfolk. To achieve eternal youth, every generation of witch doctors in the village controlled the saintess, utilizing their physique and secret elixirs to lure merfolk ashore. And those merfolk, after coming ashore and having children with humans, were cruelly slaughtered, dismembered, and eaten. Until 26 years ago, Luna, Seraphina's mother, fell in love with the merman Triton. On the day of childbirth, Luna was horrified to discover that Seraphina possessed pure merman blood. She feared that her daughter and husband would also be cruelly slaughtered like the previous merfolk. Therefore, Luna used Moonview grass and her essence blood to condense a bracelet, suppressing the merman blood in Seraphina's body. And then, on the day of childbirth, used all her strength to send her beloved back to the sea. Triton was also the only merman enchanted ashore who returned to the sea in all those years. Lily chimed in. As for why you, Triton, were not harmed. Besides Luna's intentional concealment, it was also because you had achieved great cultivation in the merman tribe, possessing the ability to move mountains and fill seas. They were not confident they could truly defeat you. So, all these years, they have been deceiving you with resurrection rituals. Leo added, when Luna passed away years ago, you caused a great disturbance, almost submerging half the village. But the truth is, they used this to buy time to collect souls, wanting to refine Luna into a supreme zombie called Immortal Bone, which would then be able to resist you. Lord Teen handed the notebook to Triton. Indeed, The back of Luna's notes also records various forbidden arts passed down by the witch doctors of Moonview Village. Triton raised his hand, and the notebook flew into his grasp. He quickly flipped through it, his expression growing increasingly grim. Suddenly, Seraphina let out a cry of pain. Elder Quinn held a knife against Seraphina's throat. He looked at Seraphina, his eyes bloodshot and filled with longing. 25 years. I didn't know Luna bore a pure-blooded merman child. You are even more suitable than Kira to be my 5th medicinal guide. Triton was furious. Elder Quinn, release Seraphina. I will not hold your deception against you any further. The village chief had fallen into a state of frenzy. One hand held the knife pointed at Seraphina. The other began to form hand seals and chant spells. His face was red. With each word of the incantation, he visibly aged from his initial astute appearance. Seraphina, imprisoned, screamed in pain. Above her head, a wisp of her human soul was about to be separated from her body. Triton was enraged. I looked out at the sea through the ancestral hall window. The waves in the distance also began to surge with his emotions. Release my daughter immediately. Otherwise, I will bury this entire Moonview Village with her. Elder Quinn shrieked. My immortal bone is almost complete. You will no longer be able to control me. He reached the hand that had just finished forming seals towards the table, displaying the memorial tablets behind him. At this moment, Lord Atsebi had just cut the ropes binding me. As soon as my hands were free, I managed to catch an object that a group of small paper figures were laboriously carrying, and I asked him, "You want this?" In my hand, I steadily held a crystal ball, with 4 vague figures suspended within. The village chief was stunned for a moment. I took out the talisman I carried, drew another, and threw it to a paper figure. The paper figure, holding the talisman, flew to the top of Seraphina's head and firmly pasted the talisman onto her forehead. That wisp of human soul, with a whoosh, returned to Seraphina's body. The village chief was furious. Triton seized his momentary distraction, cast a spell, and pulled Seraphina into his arms. I faced the village chief, sighing. The so-called immortal bone is a supreme zombie, black as a grinding stone. If refined, it will surely bring disaster to the human world. You have harmed so many girls, and you still want to use Luna's corpse to refine this monstrous thing. You truly have no conscience. For eternal youth, you Lago ate merfolk flesh, but you have also suffered a backlash. I looked at him. The villagers of Moonview who ate merfolk flesh all became unusually youthful. The village chief must be nearly 100 years old, right? The longer you live, the more you possess a face frozen in time. But your body grows increasingly rigid. Your body must have long since developed corpse spots. You escape death, but you are gradually turning yourselves into zombies. The village chief gave up struggling and began to laugh maniacally. So what? I have led the elders of Moonview to achieve immortality. I was utterly confused. Immortality is the most terrifying curse, but you definitely won't achieve it. Because your body has long been dead, your spirit will also be worn down, and you won't even enter reincarnation. I said to Triton, the coming-of-age song of your merman tribe, that song etched into your bones. which you can hum a few lines of any time. Can you sing a full version? This song can guide lost merfolk back to their homeland. I want to perform a crossing over ritual for the deceased merfolk in this fishing village. The two of them nodded and began to sing. In this melodious song, I began to chant the rebirth mantra. Supreme edict, transcend these wandering souls. All ghosts and spirits, return to the four directions. Occupy grace. Very quickly, very quickly. Streaks of golden light flew out from Elder Quinn's body, eventually entering the deep sea. In the sky far away, golden lights also continuously appeared. It seemed that all those in the village who had eaten merfolk flesh had suffered a backlash. Elder Quinn was suddenly drained of the merfolk's essence. His entire body began to shrivel, and his body emitted a foul odor. Facing me, he had transformed into a wrinkled old man covered in corpse spots. He couldn't even speak clearly anymore, and very quickly he fell, turning into a pile of dry bones. With everything resolved, I looked at Serafina and Triton. So, can you finally believe what I said now? After thoroughly cleaning the ancestral hall, we followed what was written in Luna's small book and found a hidden secret chamber within the ancestral hall. If nothing went wrong, the secret chamber should be imprisoning the 4 girls whose souls had been extracted. We proceeded to the underground secret chamber, preparing to rescue the imprisoned girls, and after bringing them up, we would return their human souls to them. However, when we arrived before the dungeon of the secret chamber, everyone was surprised. There were no girls in the dungeon, only 4 desiccated corpses, drained of their essence blood, appearing to be several years old. The situation turned bizarre, and my heart tightened. While I was still examining the dry corpses, Serafina handed me a tattered old book. There's also a study in this secret chamber. We checked it and found this ancient witchcraft text. I took it, flipped through a few pages, then suddenly paused, my gaze stopping on a page that recorded the method for creating the immortal bone. The last line ended with the number 25. The next page was torn out. I stroked that number, and an ominous premonition arose. This number looked like it had been added later. In other words, I told everyone, this number 5 was added later. The refining of the immortal bone only requires 20 years. In other words, 5 years ago, the immortal bone was already refined. Everyone rushed back to the ancestral hall. I instinctively looked towards the long offering table. The crystal ball was gone. Before I could warn everyone, an eerie laughter suddenly echoed from outside the ancestral hall door. Everyone was startled and terrified, turning their heads to see Leo's sister standing at the ancestral hall door, looking gloomily inside. At her feet was a shattered crystal ball. She suddenly raised her hands and danced into the house, completely devoid of any living breath. I anxiously shouted, "She is the immortal bone! She has absorbed 4 human souls, and her power has greatly increased. Leo, your sister has probably been dead for a long time. Her body has been possessed by the hidden immortal bone for 5 years. Quickly, find a large rooster, catch a bowl of blood, and bring it back." Leo heard this and remained silent for a moment, then flipped out the window and ran off. That immortal bone zombie laughed, terrifyingly. She pointed at me. I was suddenly frozen in place. I instantly understood what she wanted to do. She wanted to capture my human soul. If she succeeded, this village would probably be completely massacred. Triton began to fight her. An immortal bone zombie, whose power hadn't yet reached its peak, was actually able to fight Triton to a standstill. It was predictable that in less than half an hour, Triton would likely be defeated. I muttered an incantation, breaking the immobilization spell, and began to think about how to break this difficult situation. At this moment, Leo handed a bowl of chicken blood through the window. "Sister Kira, the chicken blood is here." I took the chicken blood and suddenly glimpsed the corner of a mini peach wood sword peeking out from Lord Sign's satchel. "Lord Xi, throw senior brother's sword to me." My left hand held the sword, my right hand raised the chicken blood, and I chanted a demon-subduing spell, shouting loudly, "Triton, get out of the way." Triton leaned aside, and I accurately splashed the bowl of chicken blood onto the face of Leo's sister. With my other hand, I plunged the peach wood sword deep into her heart. At the same time, I pulled out a handful of immobilization talismans from my pouch. While she was sealed by the peach wood sword, I continuously pasted 30 immobilization talismans onto her body, until I was exhausted, gasping for breath and falling to the ground, utterly worn out. Lily and Seraphina also breathed a sigh of relief, asking in unison, "Is it over now?" I wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "There's a problem. My spells and talismans can only immobilize her for half an hour at most. Look at her hand. It's still moving." Everyone looked at the female zombie, who looked like she had lost a game of cards with talismans pasted all over her face. Her hand was still trembling slightly. "If we don't find another way in half an hour, we'll all die." Leo heard this and said to me, "I have a wooden puppet at home. After my sister returned home last year, she especially loved this wooden puppet. I'll go get it for everyone to see." I was overjoyed. Quick, 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 go get it. A wooden puppet. Perhaps there was still some hope." Leo flipped out the window again and ran off. Lord Chain was suspicious. "Is there a connection to this?" I explained to everyone. "I once heard Master say that the spellcaster can capture ghosts and dispel evil, but cannot necessarily subdue zombies. Therefore, during the refining process, a zombie refiner would usually carve a human figure from wutong or willow wood at a specific time and orientation, making it share a spirit with the corpse. This is to prevent the zombie from becoming uncontrolled later. They can destroy the wooden puppet to break the corpse's energy. If I'm not mistaken, this wooden puppet shares a spirit with the immortal bone, the embodiment of Leo's sister." Not long after, Leo returned, carrying a large box. Opening the box, inside was indeed a willow wood puppet carved into a human figure. I flipped the bottom of the box over, and from a crevice, I pulled out a piece of paper. It was the missing page from the witchcraft text. It was all there. I pulled the bronze basin used for burning paper money in the ancestral hall closer, threw the wooden puppet in, and then found a barrel of tung oil used for lamps in the corner. Pouring the entire barrel in, light it, the wooden puppet, burning fiercely, emitted crackling sounds. As the wooden puppet burned, Leo's sister gradually ceased moving, finally collapsing to the ground. Afterward, Seraphina and her father explained to the villagers, who had been deceived for so long, the absurd actions of the village chief and elders. Of course, They omitted the part about merfolk, only saying that they pursued the art of eternal life, fabricated the sea god theory, and dabbled in forbidden arts, ultimately suffering a backlash. At the same time, we returned to the altar. Below the platform, the production team finally regained their senses after the confusion, all looking bewildered. The director flew into a rage on the spot. "What are you all doing? The sea offering ceremony is over. Why didn't the cameras record anything? How many people came here to sit around and do nothing?" Daniel was also bewildered, but managed to display his superpower of money in time. "Oh, director, let's just forget about it. I told everyone to film at my family's resort in Sanya. This rundown fishing village is really eerie. So many people have collective amnesia. Perhaps heaven doesn't want us to film here." The director slapped his forehead. "You're right. The signal was bad last night, and today this happened. It's better to change locations and cut our losses in time." He draped an arm over Daniel's shoulder. "Then I'll rely on you. When can we start filming?" Lord saying Lily and I exchanged glances, thinking to ourselves, being overly carefree is sometimes a good thing, huh? Serafina excused herself, citing urgent family matters, subtly declining further filming. I thought it made sense. After 25 years, her mother's affairs should finally be properly handled. The carefree director waved his hand in agreement. Moreover, until we were picked up by a boat arranged by Daniel's family, the director didn't even ask why the village chief hadn't come to see us off. He and Daniel discussed the resort in Sanya the entire way, happily boarding the boat. Everyone boarded the boat and left Moonview Village, arriving at the port in Sanya. Several nanny vans were already waiting there. Not long after, we finally reached Daniel's family resort. The butler enthusiastically led us on a tour. Our luggage had already been delivered to our respective rooms beforehand. The butler led us to the restaurant for a welcome banquet. As soon as we reached the restaurant entrance, I saw a familiar face. "Senior brother, why are you here?" Eric looked at me and Lord C beside me, then handed me an invitation. "I'm done with my work. I promised the director I'd make up for the show. Besides, the Taoist Association is holding its annual conference in Sanya. Master told me to give you this. You must attend as the master of Jade Spring Temple." "Huh? Done. I haven't even succeeded as master yet, and master is already passing off duties to me." Eric raised an eyebrow towards the distance. I looked in the direction he pointed, a little intrigued. "Oh, little Liu is here too."